Welcome to the Check Your Head podcast, the podcast where notable musicians and experts share their stories and solutions for mental health and wellness. I'm your host, Mari Fong, a music journalist and life coach for musicians, and today I'm excited to share news of our first benefit concert for mental health with rising rock band Satellite City on September 4th, 2021 at the Troubadour in West Hollywood, California. The show benefits our friends at Sweet Relief Musicians Fund and the Check Your Head podcast, and there's also a special. If you buy 2 tickets to the show on troubadour.com, bring your ticket receipt to the merch booth, and receive a free Satellite City t-shirt. How cool is that? We'll also be partying safely, with the Troubadour requiring proof of vaccination, so come ready to show your vaccine card, a photo of your vaccine card, or bring a digital vaccine card. To get your digital vaccine card, simply Google digital vaccine card, click on the california.gov website, and it takes about 10 seconds to sign up and receive your card by text message. It's really that easy. You can also bring proof of a negative COVID test 48 to 72 hours prior to the show. So come party with us and hear some great live music for a good cause. Now to our featured guests. Today we have a singer-songwriter, musician, producer, and philanthropist whose soulful rock band, the Revivalists, broke out with their single, Wish I Knew You, which garnered 525 million streams globally on YouTube, went number 1 on the Billboard charts, followed by another hit single entitled All My Friends. Now with 5 studio albums under his belt, our featured musical guest is David Shaw of the Revivalists, who recently dropped his self-titled debut solo album in May of 2021, and a clip of his song Shaken will be played at the end of our episode. David Shaw will share how he recovered from drug and alcohol addiction, his solutions for anxiety, and the one pivotal moment in David's life that scared him sober from ever drinking or doing drugs again more than 10 years ago. One of David's solutions for anxiety is practicing the Wim Hof Method. So our featured expert today is a Wim Hof Certified Instructor, Farid Hashemi of Emotion Training. Farid shares his experience with Wim Hof, the originator of this method. Having trained in the snowy mountains of Poland and the Czech Republic, Wim Hof actually developed this method after losing his wife to suicide and found benefits both mentally and physically. Farid will share these benefits today and how the 3 pillars of the Wim Hof Method can work for you too. But first, let's hear David Shaw of the Revivalists share his story. I wanted to congratulate you on your self-titled debut album. What I really enjoyed was that you expressed so many different sides of you. And I wanted to start by talking about Shaken, which I thought was a really cool song that spoke to some of your fears and insecurities.
Absolutely.
So can you explain a little bit about what those fears and insecurities were about?
Well, I'll just say that it's one of those things where things can happen to you when you're young. You know, maybe you get picked on or you just don't feel like you're good enough. That kind of thing can creep in slowly, and then it can become this, kind of virus, just a virus of the mind. And that's something that crept in a little bit and it stuck around. As I grew older, it manifests its ways in really strange and interesting ways. And I think that's one of the reasons why I had such an issue with addiction. Substances, I thought that they gave me that confidence that I needed to push through or to alleviate the anxiety that I was feeling, because I didn't feel adequate in certain situations. I didn't feel prepared. I didn't feel like I was enough. So the Shaken came about during a time when I wasn't feeling so great. We were touring a ton. I was burning the candle at both ends. I wasn't using any substances at this time, but it was just, really hard. I wasn't sleeping very well. We were on the bus quite a bit. And I just realized I was depleted. I needed to just do something for myself to just jar me and shake me back into reality. I know that I've got a lot of courage in my heart. I know that I'm a brave person because I step out and walk that wire every night. And a lot of times it feels like it's this big thing that I'm just like, oh man, I don't know if I can conquer this. You know what I'm saying? But I was doing it in and out every single night. And I just sat down and I was like, all right, I know that other people feel this way. And it's definitely not just me. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to write a song for myself and others to just be like, you know what? You might not be feeling great. You might be feeling really down. You might be shaking in your boots, but you're still there. You're going to conquer it. You're going to figure it out. You're going to do what's right. You're going to do all the things that you need to do to be in the moment, get there, and be satisfied, with the way you feel inside, and just to know that you're enough the way that you are.
Yeah, I think that sometimes we put so much self pressure on ourselves
Yeah,
with an expectation that everything is going to go as planned. And the thing is, nothing really goes as planned. And we have a hard time allowing ourselves to make mistakes. But other people don't mind when we make mistakes because it shows that we're trying. You
yeah,
know what I
I
mean?
absolutely. I've seen that when I'll flub a lyric on stage, and people almost are like, "Yeah, he is human." you know?
Right, right, exactly. And you said something about your past and about not feeling enough. And sometimes mental health issues can lead to addiction, and sometimes
Absolutely.
addiction can lead to mental health issues. What do you
Yes.
think it was for you?
I think it was both. Honestly, I think it was one kind of led in the other, and then they fed each other. It's like this vicious cycle that's really tough to get out of because you got to get far away enough from it to have a clear mind, but then you've got to confront all those things you've been running away from. So it's really, really tough. I still deal with it every single day.
Well, that's it, is like you have to peel back your own layers,
Absolutely.
things that you
Absolutely.
tried to cover up,
Yep.
like anxieties or insecurities. You were saying that when you first started with your addiction, when did it start to spiral out of control?
I would say right when I moved down to New Orleans, I was probably 24
Hmm.
when I moved to New Orleans. And this is like party city, and it's an amazing city in a lot of ways. But if you're somebody who's got a substance abuse issue going on, it was like me going from the frying pan into the fire. And it was everything all the time. Bars never close. You've got anything at your fingertips that you want. I'm a musician, so I'm in the bars, doing the thing. And that was really when it just started to spiral. I've met a lot of the right people, but I'd also met some of the wrong people. And it just became too easy to get the things that I was looking for. And there you go.
Well, I think being in music also, the whole nightlife atmosphere and scene, it is everywhere, and people are
Oh, yeah,
offering it to you all the time.
absolutely.
Um,
And
because
it's
you
always
did,
free.
it's always free because that's the in, right? To party with a band or something, you know.
Absolutely.
But you did say that when you were 24, you described that night of partying, and it landed you in the hospital, and
Yep,
it scared the living hell out of you.
it did.
And what is it exactly that happened for that
Yeah.
incident?
Well, I'll just say that I was in a bar. I had a
Mhm.
long night. I think I bought every single person in the bar shots all night. It's crazy. I remember my tab was like $923. And at that time, I had maybe $950 to my name. You know what I'm saying? So I blew my whole bank account. But that really wasn't the thing that got to me. The real thing that absolutely scared the hell out of me, and it gives me shit, goosebumps to
Goosebumps.
this day, is I was in a bar and a neighbor of mine, guy, he asked me if I needed a ride home. This was 9 a.m., mind you. 9 a.m. We're at a bar at 9 a.m. I'm not going to name the bar, but a lot of our fans know this place. But he gave me a ride home, and we went to his house for another beer. He has a wife, he had two kids, met his two kids, and then I don't remember anything.
Mm.
And then I remember I'm waking up at my house, mind you, basically buck naked. Okay.
Mm.
We're getting deep here. I've told this story one other time, but we're getting deep here. And the guy was trying to have his way with me. Luckily, our guitarist, he was walking by at the same time and comes in the house, sees the doors open, comes in the house. This guy runs out.
Mhm.
Crazy. This is insane. I can't even believe this. Every time I tell it, I just get chills. And he goes, what's going on? What the hell? What is happening? I'm completely gone. I'm like roofied.
Wow.
Yeah. So the paramedics come, they give me some smelling salts. I remember waking up, and it's funny because I remember saying something really funny and just making that's the only memory I have of like them putting me on the little stretcher and carrying me down into the ambulance. So yeah, they said my vitals were pretty low. It was just not a good situation. I almost got raped, so yeah, not good. And that really scared that scared me straight.
Well, when I read about that, I thought that you had maybe drank too much, taken drugs on your own volition, and maybe overdosed or something. But you never know what's in your drink if somebody's offering you something. And I've had other people tell me something similar to what you're saying. And that is really a traumatic experience. And from that, what was the next step for you? I mean, it's hard enough to process that. And thank God your guitarist was there. And oh my gosh, thank God. What was it that you learned from that experience?
I learned that I don't think I could trust myself fully at the time. And I realized that I needed to be able to rely on myself because those things can just happen. Because I'm just a very trusting individual. I'm a Midwesterner, and like I said, this person was my neighbor. Like, he's got 2 kids.
Right. You would never ever expect anything.
Never
like
expect that. But that just really made me go, okay, there are true predators out there, and you can't see that coming. You know what I'm saying? So I just realized I was like, all right, if I'm gonna make it in this life, I'm gonna need to keep my faculties upon me.
So that was really it, is really being conscious and aware all the time to protect yourself. Because there was a time where you mentioned you were drinking and there was cocaine, heroin, those kinds of things. I mean, was there a point where you
I
said...
never shot up or anything. I only had a little bit of that, but never.
Yeah, just dabbled.
I don't get down with needles.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to hear. Now, was there a point where you said, I want to go completely sober, or was it a gradual process?
It was a gradual process, and then it was like, okay, this is it. It was tough. It's tough. It's still tough to this day because there's things that are probably okay for me, but then there's also, no, that leads to something else, and that leads to that, and that leads to that, and then I'm right back where I started very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to so many musicians about mental health and addiction, and oftentimes it gets to be an addictive personality where it's hard to start and then do anything in moderation. Did you find that with yourself? Because there's oftentimes a lot of starts and stops and so many stories along that journey.
I was in that for a little while, and I haven't had a sip of alcohol since that night. Dabbled in a few other things here and there, but alcohol and cocaine and any really hard thing, that was the time where it just ceased to exist in my life. Because if you get alcohol and me going, all my inhibitions go out the window. Everything becomes an okay at that moment. So I knew that's a no-go. So it's been a winding road, but I've got a really great handle on how I'm feeling about all that right now. And I'm just taking it one day at a time. That's all I can do.
Well, I really congratulate you on that journey, because 10 years is really a good, strong amount of time. And I know that there's been struggles within that time. It takes a lot of discipline, lot of discipline. And so big props to that.
Thank you.
One thing, yeah, absolutely. One thing you mentioned, you said something about getting into drugs and running away from the things that we're trying to not look at. I know you've done therapy and you've done different things for your wellness. What were
Yep.
some of the things that you think you were running away from, or
Let's see.
issues or situations?
I think it's a lot of anxiety, just anxiety. And I don't know if I can put my finger on one thing or the other, and sometimes it can be just like, oh, I got to do this one thing. Oh man, I got to do that. You never know when it's going to come. It's pretty much a crapshoot when it comes to that, because there could be things where I'm like, oh man, I don't think I'm going to be feeling this, and then I feel fine. But then it could be this little thing. I'm like, oh, and then it really hits me. So that's one of those things where I think therapy has helped me a lot to just go in and dissect various layers of what could potentially be causing what and why I'm feeling a certain way. So yeah, I'm still figuring that out, honestly.
Because we've had musicians come on and talk about panic attacks. And I'm not sure if your anxiety has ever gotten to that level.
Hasn't got to that level.
Okay. But you mentioned breathing exercises
Yeah.
and a certain method that you learned.
Yes.
Can you explain that? Because I found that breathing methods seem to really help with anxiety.
Yes.
What's this method that you're talking about?
So, well, it's the Wim Hof breathing method, and it's like anxiety training, because what I've found is that when you're doing these fast breaths, it can almost like hyperventilates you, not totally, but like a little bit. And what it does is it super oxygenates your blood, but on the other side of it, it gives you a little anxiety, or at least it does for me. And it feels like anxiety training. It feels like it really helps with changing the relationship that you have with the anxiety, basically. That's where a lot of the change occurred with me, was when I realized that this is a thing we all have to deal with, some to different varying degrees. Me being someone who's, always performing, and it's going to be a little more in my life. So I needed to change the relationship I had to anxiety. Now I call it that juice.
It's a little bit of an adrenaline thing. So it could help you on stage,
Yeah.
as far as energy levels. So the Wim Hof method, is it more breathing quickly to get used to that feeling? Or is it a slowing down of your breathing?
So you do these quick in and outs, like you do that 50
Okay.
times.
Wow.
And then 50 times. And so it's in as far as you can, and then out, not all the way out, like pretty much all the way out, but you're not like really expelling all the air out. You do that 50 times. And then when you breathe out, you hold it. And you will be amazed. This is because when you're sitting there, that your brain will go, okay, it's time to get some oxygen from the blood. And you'll start to go, oh God, okay, I need to breathe. I need to breathe. But if you just give it a second, it basically goes, okay, we got what we need. I'm telling you, it's truly amazing. It really is. I can hold my breath for 4 minutes. And it's not about holding your breath, it's how long. It's not a contest or anything, but the fact that like you don't freak out, that's a big thing. You know what I'm saying? So it definitely calms me, but it's really, yeah, I don't know.
I like that whole idea of oxygenating your blood, because then everything goes to all your major organs, right? Everything gets energized.
The thing that really honestly has helped me is the cold therapy.
Okay.
That's a Wim Hof thing as well. And just taking a cold shower. And I will say the colder, the better, for sure. And they say that you can't train the autonomic nervous system. It happens. It's on auto. But through various things like cold therapy, he has shown that you can regulate these things and not go into freak out mode when you do jump into a hot tub that's filled with ice. And the water's 37 degrees. The human body can withstand that. Now, I'm not telling anybody to just go and do that, because you got to work up to that. But that's not to say that, you can't do it. It's all about awakening these things that have basically been laying dormant in our body for a while because we live these very comfortable lifestyles. And so this is just one way that, we can wake up some of our DNA, some of the stuff that's in us that we don't even know is there.
The cold therapy, I've heard sometimes when people get really anxious or they start to spiral, they will splash cold water on their face just to shock it into stopping that whole, spiraling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if you have anxiety and you take a cold shower, it just crushes it.
So I think I'm going to get a Wim Hof Method expert on your episode so they could explain that a little bit more.
That would be amazing.
You talked about that experience that really scared you. And you also talked about therapy. Is that something that you had to deal with and talk about in therapy?
Not so much. But the thing is, it's wild. This is the thing. I don't remember that. I have no memory of the situation. And thankfully, nothing actually happened. I had to do the whole rape test kit, and swab everywhere, and they had to do all this stuff. So thankfully, they didn't find anything on me or, anything like that. So, it's weird. Maybe it's manifested in other ways that I just don't even realize. But I've definitely talked to my therapist about that kind of stuff. But it was one of those things where it was like, it just happened and I didn't have any memory of it. So it almost didn't affect me in a weird way. I think if I had a memory of it and it was very traumatic, I think then, whoa, yeah, I would have had to do some pretty heavy, therapy on it. Honestly, I'm pretty thankful I don't have any memory of it.
I'm thankful too. I'm thankful that there wasn't any kind of weird suffering or thing that you had to endure. That it was more like just a shock to you. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, and that's mostly how it feels.
Well, I read that during the pandemic, you were able to really focus on self-care and wellness and establish some good routines. But when you go on tour, it's harder to keep with routines. And you're touring with your solo album and also with the Revivalists. Mm-hmm. What are some things that you want to implement on tour as far as self-care on a daily basis?
I need to make sure that I get proper rest. That is like the key thing to my mental health and wellness. If I don't get proper sleep, everything else just falls by the wayside. I realize that very quickly. I need to get at least 6 hours. Like 6 hours is the minimum. It's really tough to get 8, 10, 12 on tour just because the bus is rattling around. And, once the sun comes out, it's 8 a.m., I'm up, regardless of how much I've slept through the night. So that's the main thing. I gotta make sure that I get the good sleep.
Well, how do you do that on tour? Because there's so much going on at night, and you're on a tour bus. Struggle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't drink, so I'm not in that scene, but I also like to live a little vicariously through that, you know what I'm saying? Because it was such a big part of my life for so long. I can't have any alcohol or anything in the green room of the tour bus. Honestly, it doesn't bother me. It almost makes me feel more normal. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's another reason why I'm grateful for the situation that I had, is it really just put a unpenetrable wall up against like me not messing with that stuff anymore, because I know where that can lead for me. So it's tough though, it's really tough. You just got to make sure you're comfortable. You got to make sure you're eating well. I've all fruits and vegetables, a little bit of lean proteins. I'm eating oatmeal every single day. That has changed my life as well. I gotta say,
the fiber is good for you. Right?
I gotta say, oatmeal is where it's at, y'all.
And it can be really delicious too. You add some raisins and cinnamon and all that.
I'm a Manuka honey and almonds and blueberries and bananas.
God. That sounds so good.
And a little bit of full fat oat milk on there.
Very nice. Because I hear you eat really clean too.
I try. I
Yeah.
try.
But I'm also glad that you talked about sleep, because to me, sleep is really a foundation for mental health. And we really don't realize it. So you have to have really good experience to finally realize that the late nights till 4 a.m. and there's a lot of ups and downs with your hours. When you get up and when you go to sleep, there's not a lot of routine with that. So developing a good routine for you to get at least 6 to 10 hours really makes a difference with your mental health for the day. And once you don't get it, you're screwed, right? You
Yeah,
feel just like
you are.
crap.
You're behind the eight ball. You're treading water. I realized that pretty early on, and that was one of the things that was going on when I started to write Shaken. Coming off that tour, I was not sleeping well at all on the bus. We're talking lay in that bunk all night long, not a single drop of shut eye, and then having to go out and do shows, and then doing the show, going back to the bunk, eyes wide open, just laying there, and then just try again. I don't know how many times that happened, 2 or 3 times. And then finally, your body just goes, you can't do it anymore. But that was the cycle that I was in for a while, and it was just wreaked havoc.
Mm-hmm. We talked about drugs that you're not taking anymore. And then there are other medications that can be healing or, even conducive to sleep. Are there any medications or drugs that you use?
No, I've taken the occasional sleep pill, but that was back in that time as well. I was just desperate. I've been prescribed Xanax. Not a good thing for me because it's very addictive. So don't mess with that. The sleeping pills definitely are no good for sleep for me. It just didn't work. And the benzos are they're not good for people who have addictive personalities, Honestly, my thing is I'm best when I'm just fully, I'm drinking water, I'm eating good, and I'm getting a full night's sleep. And I just said to my girlfriend the other day, I'm as sober as they come, and I'm sleeping the best I've ever slept in my life. And it's just because I'm not taking anything. I'm not, I'm not.
You're clean. You're
clean as a whistle.
Sometimes the whole thing with drugs and alcohol, there's a curiosity there and you want to try different things. But once you're free of a lot of that, even caffeine.
I'm not even having caffeine these days, which is insane.
Me neither. That's why I'm sleeping better though.
Yep.
With all the things that you do for wellness, has this ever been a part of what you do with the band on tour?
It kind of started to be that way pretty recently, just because everybody's getting older and having kids, and it's just tougher to tour when you're older. And so there's definitely been a shift for a much more palatable touring schedule. Obviously, everybody feels good about that because everybody's healthier. We're not dogging ourselves out, and we're able to bring our A game to the show.
So you take conscious breaks during each leg of the tour, which is a great way to pre-plan that because it's all about how you feel right on stage and your energy level. And I'm sure that the fans can also feel that.
Oh, yeah. There's been times where I'll do a show. This was when we were dogging it pretty hard, and I'm getting messages, Dave, you're not looking so good. You're looking a little gaunt. Are you eating well? And I could tell, I wasn't looking so good. I wasn't eating well. So they know for sure.
One thing that I read about you is that you are an introvert living an extrovert's life. And I really love that because I'm also an introvert that has to do the same thing. And there are a lot of musicians that feel that way as well. What advice would you give an introverted musician on how to live an extroverted life?
I would say be patient with yourself and don't be too hard on yourself. Give yourself time to acclimate to whatever situation you're in. Don't run from your anxiety, but also don't try to just blow down the doors. So because that can also scar you a little more. You can give yourself PTSD. I've heard of that. So just be patient with yourself and know that through various things that you do for yourself, it'll get better, and you'll get better at knowing how to play you.
what I thought was really interesting is that you believe that you're an empath.
Yeah.
What do you feel are the joys and the burdens of being an empath?
I would say that some of the joys are just that I can feel other people's joy. I feel my joy. I just feel, like when I walk into a room, I feel like I can just get a sense of honestly just like how the energy is in the room, how people are doing. I've always felt that way. But like you said, it's a bit of a double edged sword because oh, I'll be watching something on TV, and if it's one of these murder mysteries, I'm feeling every bit of it, and it's special to be able to feel that. I feel like that has gotten into my art. And the way that I write songs, it's an essential ingredient, I think. But yeah, it's tough sometimes. It's tough, but I wouldn't change it for sure.
Well, empaths are really there also to heal. And you're doing that through your music, bringing lots of joy, and also the songs of struggle really relate to people and they can tap into that. But yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm an empath too. So I know
Yeah,
how you feel. Yeah, it's tough because I cannot see like murder. I know it's fake when
yeah,
somebody is getting
yeah,
shot, but when they get shot, I feel that and it pains me. And then the
yeah,
other thing is that if you come across somebody, you could pick up on their energy,
yeah.
which that's the part that could be a double-edged sword. If they're
Mhm.
depressed or anxious, you could pick up on that. And because it pains us, I think we want to help. There's something in us that wants to help that person.
Big time. That's honestly, yes. And that's the side of me that is the most prevalent. And also, I say this all the time: is I'm a giver and forgiver. Sometimes I can just lose myself in the picture, and bringing it back to the double-edged sword. That's where it can get a little tricky and troublesome for people who are that way because you can deplete yourself pretty quickly. And you're not thinking about numero uno. You know what I'm saying? You're just not. That's what this whole refocus, reshifting into personal wellness has made me realize that, like, as long as I'm good inside, I can bring my energy into any situation and it's just boom, bulletproof. It's just good. It's just good feeling, transform a room kind of vibe. I feel like I can do that only if I'm feeling good.
Right, right. I can't wait to see you live. You guys are coming
Oh,
to
yeah.
town.
Where are
I
you
want to
at?
feel it. I'm in Los Angeles. I know
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys are playing the Beach Life Festival,
Oh, yes.
and you're touring for both. You're
Yeah.
touring
Yep.
with the Revivalists and also with your solo album. So you've been really busy. One thing also is you've given back quite a bit. You have your Rev causes,
Yep.
which I think is really wonderful. It's your philanthropic
Yep.
endeavors. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
We got to a point in our career where we were able to give back and we weren't just scratching for every nickel and dime. And it just felt like we had this platform. Let's shine some light on some organizations that really mean a lot to us. I just set up a fundraiser on Facebook for Songs for Kids Foundation. And they just bring so much joy to these kids' lives who have terminal illnesses or issues that just hinder them. So that's a really good organization that we work with. We work with Upturn Arts, Everytown for Gun Safety, which is also something that is, near and dear to my heart. I think we got a big issue in this country regarding that, and anything that we can do to help push the needle for change in that direction, I think is important.
Thank you so much for doing that. And it also feels good, right, to give back
It
and
absolutely does.
doesn't
Once
it?
again, the giver. Come on, feels good.
I feel like you're in this really great chapter of life. It's coming out in your music.
It feels
And
good. I'm glad it's
yeah,
resonating with you as well.
yes, it is. And I was wondering, is there anything else that you would like to say about your music or about mental health?
I guess I would just say to the fans, if you're having an issue, don't hesitate to reach out and get help because we all go through these things and there's no sense in just gritting and bearing it. There's many resources out there to help you get back on track. If you're having an issue with addiction, once again, the first step is admitting that there's an issue and just going out there and being brave and doing what you got to do. So I just want to say that I love all my fans. I love all the people that support me. And I just thank you guys so much.
One more question, because
Yeah.
I get super curious, but when you were getting sober, were you in a program, or what is it that helped you get off of those medications? Or was it just willpower? What is it that worked for you?
I went to one AA meeting and I sat down and I, listened to the stories, and there was just this really powerful feeling and realization that came over me in the meeting. It was just like, oh my God, like I've been in this cycle for X amount of years. The guy over here who's 65 years old, he was in that cycle for 40 years, and I just realized, oh my God, okay, I don't want to be doing this when I'm, that old. I just didn't feel like there was any real growth that was possible, both physically, mentally, spiritually, anything. It just felt like, going around and around. So that was one of the main realizations. And then like I said, I had that experience that really helped me. But the going to the AA, the one meeting, and just having that realization was also imperative to nipping that situation in the bud.
So you took yourself off the drugs.
Yeah.
You didn't have to have any kind of a program or any kind of,
no.
Like sometimes people will take medication, something else in replace of.
It was a damn hard time to quit smoking cigarettes after that, but I'll just tell you, I had to get a tattoo. Stop smoking. Quitting smoking cigarettes. I quit on December 7th, 2010. So it's been over.
Congratulations.
Yeah, but that was tough. That was hard.
My God, I bet it was. But it's one of the best things you could do for your body.
Oh my God, yeah.
So I'm giving you huge props. You are a check your head superhero.
Ah, wow. You're too kind. Too kind.
Next, our featured guest trained with Wim Hof, the creator of the Wim Hof Method, who's also known as the Iceman. Our expert today is Farid Hashemi of Emotion Training, one of the first 25 certified instructors in the U.S. on the Wim Hof Method. Wim Hof first developed this method after losing his wife to suicide and found it not only helped with his mental grief, but also boosted him physically as well. As a result, Wim Hof is now an extreme athlete and has garnered 26 Guinness World Records for various cold water and ice sports. So let's hear Wim Hof trainer Farid Hashemi share the benefits of this unique method. We just heard from David Shaw of the Revivalists, who swears by the Wim Hof Method for anxiety and other mental health issues. Now, I heard that you went to Poland and the Czech Republic to train with Wim Hof, who they call the Iceman because part of the method is cold therapy. But I wanted to start with your story. What made you first want to try the Wim Hof Method?
There's a Vice documentary on the Wim Hof Method that came out 5-6 years ago. So I watched that at the time, and I was really impressed by, I should say, blown away by his ability to take random people that are not in any special shape and take them on this cold exposure training and teach them about breathing and their body so they can tap into what seemed like supernatural powers or some things that we had locked up, so to speak. And that just seemed like a really cool adventure, a cool way to gain some abilities that we don't know. And that's how I did it. I signed up for the course. When I watched the documentary, it was a winter expedition, which is a week you spend in Poland, which is close to Czech Republic. There was 26 of us from all over the world, all different backgrounds, different ages. And we all met at his house, stayed there for a week as we did meditation, breath work, cold training, and just vibed with each other and learned from each other and really connected. And that was probably the most profound week of my life. There's nothing really that I expected for it because there was really no information. Very, very few people had done it at the time. No one knew about it. There was like 10,000 views on that video at the time when I watched it. Now it has 4 million views. I didn't know anything about it. I hadn't practiced it. I hadn't done any cold exposure. And so it was a complete shock, a literal and metaphorical sense of the word. So, but it was a very eye-opening and introspective experience. And I can say that it really freed me a lot. It taught me a lot about myself, and it gave me the tools really to sort myself out. I thought, now that I know this, I can definitely help other people too.
Were you a personal trainer at the time that you decided to do this training?
Yes, I was applying for physical therapy doctorate programs. I had my own business and I was working for a boutique gym. I applied for schools, and in the interim of waiting, that's when I saw the video and I decided to go there. And here's the cool part about it. Once I did the experience and I came back, the long story short, I got all these rejection letters, and it was more like, I'm going to go do this for myself. Now that I learned that there are masters of the body, mind, breath that can teach you and show you the ways that you may never learn it, I'm going to go seek the knowledge. So I basically dropped out of school and I started to build my personal training and this performance practice into what it is today over the past 5-6 years.
Very nice. Well, one thing you said is that it was a life-changing experience for you. I mean, what were some of these life-changing things that you learned about yourself that changed you mentally, physically?
There's two things in particular that come to mind. Number one is the breathing experience, what we would call the DMT breath work, but it's a breath work technique that's a little bit more advanced, not just the Wim Hof Method, but that had a very, I don't even know how to say it, mind-blowing internal experience. So this is when I gained a lot of insight into so many things I didn't even know I had going on with me. Namely, I've never known my mother. And so I had an experience that, it was so strange. When we were doing this breathing technique, once I got into it, my body, I'm going to leave out all the details because I like people to experience their own thing. But let's just say I got in touch with how I felt at a very early stage of life, having not had a mother. And you live that, you experience it like an ayahuasca experience, but naturally. So you got to gain a lot of insight into your psyche, into your mental, emotional, soulful state when nothing else was there. It was incredible. And I had a good cry, a really good cry, something that was so guttural and so deep and so locked up that immediately after, it was like you were empty, like a brand new human.
Sounds like it was a release of something that was being held inside, maybe pain or confusion or whatever it is with your mother. And then once it was released, it lightens you, right? It's something heavy you were carrying. Maybe you weren't even sure that you were carrying this, but with that release comes just a lightness of being, I'm sure.
That was the first experience. That's the one that really taught me about the breath, about the body, the mind, the soul. This is what really just propelled me onto a whole nother realm of life, to the unseen part of life, the things that we're not told. You have to seek, you have to want, you have to suffer, you have to find the ways, like Wim found the way. There are people like this in all aspects of life. Through enough suffering and enough desire of yourself, you're going to find these practices or these methods or these things that are going to be hugely beneficial for the soul, the mind, the body to connect all and to understand self. So that's the most profound thing. And then the next thing was the mountain hike that was about 6.5 hours, wearing nothing but shorts in this freezing mountain, and there was a few times I genuinely wanted to throw in the towel, and I thought I was going to maybe lose body parts to frostbite or something because, it was extreme. Like I said, I couldn't prepare for it. And I had a decent ego going into it, thinking that if this person has done it, then I certainly can do it because I'm in better shape. I have a stronger mind, et cetera, et cetera. And when you went out there, you would be humbled by seeing a 76-year-old woman with arthritis in her knees walking up the same mountain as you with a smile on her face while you're shivering. That by itself was something amazing, to really be dependent on self and the breath and your comrades and see what you're capable of. It's another mind-opening, mind-blowing, body-opening, body-blowing experience.
Well, I'd read that Wim Hof actually developed his method after he lost his wife to suicide. And it was his way of coping. And through that, he was able to deal with her death and then wanted to spread the word. You already talked about the cold therapy and also some of the breathing. Can you explain exactly what the Wim Hof method is, I guess in simple terms, so that we can understand it?
Yeah, very simple. This is the best part about it, is the simplicity. And the information is out there for everyone to use for free. You don't need to pay anyone to learn. There's tutorial videos on YouTube, on their website, lots of scientific articles. But in this practice, it's very simple, but there's very deep layers to this practice. The simplicity is this. There's three pillars. There's the breathing pillar, there's the mindset pillar, and there's the cold exposure pillar. And these three in conjunction together makes the practice exponentially more powerful. They have physiological, mental, and emotional effects. And one of them increases the next one. So if you do the breathing, it gets your mindset and your focus right, and your physiology and chemistry to endure the cold, the pain of the cold, the shocking of the cold, all of that. It actually numbs your body through natural pain medication. So you do that, you're going to set up your body physically, you're going to set up your mind mentally. That's the breathing to the meditation, to the physiological state. Now the effects of the pain modulation, you're going to be sitting in an ice bath of freezing water that first crushed you. And then within 45 seconds to a minute and a half, you're going to be blown away by how you're one with the water. And you can't feel it. And you're sitting there with your eyes wide open in a state of clear meditation, an extreme presence for 2-3 minutes, whatever time it is that you're doing.
I read that Wim Hof has quite a few Guinness World Records for all these different feats. And one of them was being in ice water for almost 2 hours. And it sounds like this training allows you to meditate or have mind control to the point where you can control your physical ability, I guess, to endure pain and cold.
Yeah,
Is that what it is?
First of all, you're able to release and get out of the overthinking mind. So most of our problem actually arises from being disconnected. Is that when we're doing one thing, we're really never doing one thing. We're usually doing one thing and the mind is diverted on your kids, on your work, on something else. So that disconnection itself, not having your 100% focus, if your mind is active and it's chattery and it's making up questions and problems, then the other parts cannot also be released to do what they do as well. So your chemistry changes through the mindset because parts of your brain, like your hypothalamus, are going to actually work. You're training it to work. Your conscious mind stops overthinking. You can't focus on anything but the present moment. And so you have a cascade of physiological effects that take place then. There's actually things happening in your body that allow Wim to stay in there for 2 hours, and you can increase the practice like that.
You have taught clients. What are some of the things that you hear from them as far as the benefits they receive?
The number one thing is everyone just feels great. They love it. I have one client that comes in, before I even say anything, he's like, let's do meditation. Let's do Wim Hof Method. That's how much he loves the release and the stress reliefs and the clarity and the peace that he gets from doing the meditation. And the ice bath, everyone just loves the feeling. Like they love when they're in there and they're able to endure it and enjoy it. They laugh, they giggle. There's pictures, there's like hundreds and hundreds of Polaroids that I have of people that I've put in this ice bath, and they're smiling or they're in deep meditation or they're very chill. You feel good. You feel possible and capable. They're more emotional, not in a negative way, but in a positive way where they tap in, where typically they can be unaware of themselves and how they feel, or where they just know they're stagnant. And so I recognize this stuff. I see the energy shift.
I mean, David Shaw mentioned anxiety and how the breathing techniques actually can transform his anxiety to adrenaline, which can help him perform better. Does it help for other kind of mental health issues like depression or OCD or What else you hear from your clients as far as that, how it mentally can help them?
Anxiety is your mind being overactive, thinking forward, creating and predicting problems that are not there. Just an overactive running mind. It's tiring. You're trying to do something else. You can't do that one thing. And depression is you're down in the dumps. I speak from experience. I was studying for my psychology portion, and my thing was on depression. That was my life for about 16 years. So my point is, when you do meditation, has been shown scientifically to improve mental health by itself, just feeling the ability to be present. Now, you take a powerful technique like this where it's made for anyone, where you can let go and you can tap in and go deep and go as far as you want to. The answer to how does it help, I would say how much can being present and how much can that help with any mental challenges that you have? It's profound.
A big thank you to our musical guest, David Shaw of the Revivalists, and our expert, Farid Hashemi of eMotion Training. For more information on David Shaw's debut solo album and tour, visit davidshaw.com and follow him on his socials at The David Shaw Music and at The David Shaw. And for more information on the Revivalists, visit therevivalists.com. Follow them on their socials at The Revivalists. And stay tuned for a clip of David Shaw's single Shaken from his new self-titled debut album. For more information on Farid Hashemi and the Wim Hof Method, visit e-motion-training.com and follow him on Instagram at e_motion_training. Thank you to all of our loyal listeners for your reviews and for following us on our socials at Check Your Head Podcast and on our YouTube channel. Visit checkyourheadpodcast.com to find more than 125 mental health solutions for recovery. So until next time, be brave, ask for help, and be persistent in finding the mental help that you need.
I'm not the same as before. I'm as good as I want to be, so the less you know, the more. I won't tell you lies. I wasn't raised up that way. I won't tell you lies. I can't carry that weight. Oh, those walls are coming down, and I noticed the ground was shaking, shaking. I'm still standing here, shaking, shaking. I'm still standing here.
Check Your Head Podcast is kindly supported and partnered with Sweet Relief Musicians Fund, DBSA San Gabriel Valley, Earshot Media, and Lemon Tree Studios in Los Angeles. Visit checkyourheadpodcast.com, where we have over 100 solutions for mental help. Be our friends on social media at Check Your Head Podcast. Watch us on YouTube and support us with a kind donation on checkyourheadpodcast.com. Check Your Head Podcast is sponsored by a 501c3 nonprofit, with all donations being tax deductible. Thank you for your support and thank you for listening.